Richard. So, questions or observations or comments? Okay.
Hello, I'm Sarah from the Reader organisation. I'm just wondering if you have one or two hows in response to how we can heal social relations.
Well, and people again and again want to do something about the problem without doing anything about income inequality because they think somehow that's too distant, too hard. Although I think that the sort of services that are provided, whether it's medical care or drug rehabilitation units or doing something about social cohesion and stuff on really run-down estates, I think all that is important, and some of those things have been shown to confer important benefits. I think we will have to do that patching up forever as long as we have the inequalities that go on creating this problem. And whether you're talking about drug rehabilitation where, you know, as soon as you get someone off drugs, you know that other people are starting to take them, or someone gets a coronary bypass operation and you know everyone else's arteries continue to be flaring up. So we're not dealing with the sources of these problems. But how do we deal with them? It's not going to be a quick, easy fix. I think it means building a social movement that might need to last for 10 or 20 years, focused on this, but I think the basis on which we should be committing to that as a project is a knowledge that it's not about any longer being altruistic to help the poor. It's about a better quality of life for all of us. And I think if we really believe that there is a better quality of life possible, that our societies don't have to be constantly torn apart by these things. If we also see how that relates to solving problems of sustainability, climate change, and there are quite important links between equality and sustainability, and briefly, as I said, it's inequality that fuels status competition and so consumerism. People in more unequal countries, they save less of their income, they spend more, they get into debt more, they work longer hours because money is even more important. It says what you're worth. And so as part of dealing with consumerism, which is the real threat to the environment, we have to increase equality, but also sustainability is about being more aware of the common good. And because more equal societies have higher levels of trust, stronger community life, less violence and so on, it looks as if they are more public-spirited. We tested that out in a few ways. One of them was actually looking at the proportion of waste materials that are recycled. If I had time, I'd show you that too is higher in more equal countries. More equal countries give more in overseas aid. Actually, a colleague of yours at UCL showed me data, a survey of business leaders' opinions, an international survey. And one of the questions they were asked is, how important do you think it is that your country, your government, abides by international environmental agreements? They do think that's important. Business leaders think that's important in more equal countries. In the more unequal countries, they just feel they've got to fend for themselves. It's about looking after yourself. And so they don't think it's important that their government should take any notice of these agreements. So lots of ways in which equality and sustainability go together, and that's where our future lies, and we have to get that idea across. But how we get the greater equality is partly, I think, by supporting all the more democratic forms of business organisation, whether friendly societies, mutuals, employee-owned companies, cooperatives, both producer and consumer cooperatives, because I think that bonus culture was only possible because the people at the top felt they didn't have to account to anyone else. They could do just what they liked. And so whether it's employee representatives on the board or any of these other things, were wondering about creating an ethical consumer movement so that people take their custom to whether the phone co-op or the cooperative bank. These things have higher ethical standards in other ways as well. And perhaps companies that have small income differences, even if they aren't more democratic in other ways. So that's the sort of road I think we need to go down.
Thank you, Richard. Over there, yeah, John.
Okay. John Screen from Creating Excellence. Claire mentioned just now that happy moment when David Cameron seemed to be endorsing the work on spirit level. You mentioned more than once your right-wing critics. I'm interested to know really, especially as you say that you're really campaigning on this, whether you have got the ear of still any people on the right, or whether you feel you're being driven back into sympathetic audiences and the sort of guardian ghetto from which we all hope that you had lifted this debate out of.
I don't know whether the problem is that when you get it's interesting, there was a book published recently in the United States called Merchants of Doubt, which was analysis of how often the same individuals and the same funding organizations had supported the undermining of the evidence on climate change, on the ozone layer, on the effect of pesticides, on the health effects of smoking and tobacco control and so on. And actually, the man who wrote one of the key criticisms of us, his previous work, and he'd never done anything in this field before, he's not an epidemiologist, he hadn't shown any interest in it before, but his previous work was an attempt to rubbish tobacco control and the effects of secondary smoking. And you see, if they can give the appearance of anything being controversial, then of course people who never actually liked it very much anyway can say, oh no, it's still very controversial. And I'm quite sure that's what will happen on the right side of politics. I haven't got an idea really of how far that has gone. We have decided not to appear on platforms debating these or on radio programs or whatever with these people, because you see what they are doing, which is totally different from the academic criticism, is pretending that ours is the only evidence and that we've manufactured it. Very few academics now would not accept the basic relationships. Where there are arguments, it tends to be how they should be interpreted. Exactly what's going on that's creating these relationships, which is a very different approach. And so I'm very happy to talk about, discuss and deal with questions on evidence, but I avoid now debating with people who just want to make it sound controversial. We've just written actually an additional chapter for our book dealing with its reception and the criticism. And one of the things I say there is, of course, if I suggested that climate science hadn't taken account of the variations in the salinity of different oceans, that's an entirely fanciful suggestion. I have no reason to think there's anything to it at all. But if I said that in a discussion, it would make people say, oh, does that matter? And they should have taken, haven't they taken it into account? The doubt is there, even though it has no basis at all. And so I think you don't have to have good evidence to be destructive. And of course, media people always want well-balanced discussion, someone for and against. And yet, we wouldn't have published this unless we were very sure of it. I am someone who has more than the usual fear of making a fool of himself and of being criticised, and so I've been thinking about it for so long without,
Thank you. I think I've got a question here in the middle. I think this might be the last one in this little phase.
Pippa Waring, Arts Council. One of the things I found interesting when I was reading your book was the potential relationship between inequality and gender inequality. You don't really discuss that, and when you look at the graph of countries, in some cases it would appear there is greater gender equality correlating to greater equality over income, but in other cases perhaps not so. Are you able to comment?
Yes, we do have a little bit in the book about gender equality, and I think there's quite a lot of evidence, not only in the two settings we look at, but more widely in the academic literature, that the two go together, that income inequality in a society and the position of women. Women suffer more in societies with bigger income differences. I'm not sure that works the way people often imagine it does. I suspect that where, for instance, and demographers and development economists always used to say the position of women was important in terms of infant mortality and so on, they measured that usually by the educational disadvantage of women in developing countries. But it's been shown that the position of women measured in that sort of way is related not only to infant mortality. The first ideas, I think, were that maybe better educated women have better hygiene standards for their children and things like that, but actually it's related to the health of adult women and adult men. So everyone seems to benefit. And I think actually what it's telling us is that women's status can't improve while you've got a very unequal patriarchal society with more violence and so on, where the public space is less of a social space. Women's status can improve in if you like, a gentler, more cohesive society. Even in the United States, there's a paper by colleagues at Harvard who measure women's status in 3 different ways. What proportion of representatives in each state are women, the economic disadvantage in terms of incomes, the economic participation rates, and all of them are related to the health of women, but even more strongly to the health of men. And the idea that women's status, we don't suffer, we actually gain when women have better status. But that, I think, is because, again, it's becoming a marker for a more equal, more sociable society in general. And it's men's health that is most powerfully affected by inequality. In more unequal societies, men get pushed back into that traditional male role where there's more violence, there's more risk-taking behaviour of every kind. And women's health is also related to inequality, but men's even more.
Thank you, Richard. Okay. Well, thank you once again for such powerful evidence. And for responding to the questions in the debate so thoughtfully. I guess, if we're convinced by the data and the evidence which we've heard both from Richard and earlier from Ilaria, that it is our duty and responsibility to use that to inform our own thinking, our own work of our own organisations, and to inform and perhaps educate those who perhaps also we would like to be in this room and that we seek to influence. But thank you very much indeed.